Welcome to Victim Blaming 101 with Victoria.
And Megan.
So what is victim blaming?
It's holding a survivor or victim accountable for the violence or injustice that they've experienced. This leads them and the rest of society to believe that the abuse or injustice is their own fault. This process is dehumanizing for the survivor or victim.
What are two areas where we see victim blaming the most?
Well, sexual assault is a huge area where this occurs, and also within police brutality, which you'll touch on later.
Who is most affected by victim blaming?
Social minorities are at an increased risk. Demographics include young women and girls, racialized communities, and members of the LGBTQIA+ communities. Intersectionality proposes that more than one of these identities combined leads to increased risk of victimization.
Why do you think women are vulnerable to victim blaming in sexual assault cases?
Well, if an individual is portrayed as promiscuous or known to be sexually free, they are easily victim blamed for their assault. Certain groups are often blamed for their own assaults and held responsible instead of the perpetrator. For example, many Asian, Indigenous, Latina, and African American individuals are stereotypically categorized as hypersexual beings that are promiscuous, making them subject to more violence and easily blamed for their assaults or deaths in the media.
Do you have any examples of this from Canada?
Well, there are many cases where Indigenous sex workers have been brutally raped, murdered, and blamed for their own assault and death. In the case of Pamela George, she was seen as nothing but a disposable prostitute during her trial, or Cindy Gladue, whose perpetrator blamed her death and assault on the fact that she was drunk, when really she died due to sexual assault. Alcohol consumption will often be used as a defense for the abuser's actions, but it's also used as a reason to blame the victim for what happened to them. So Victoria, how do we see victim blaming as a result of police brutality?
When hate crimes occur, the media highlights the victim's prior offenses or certain affiliations with a group. People respond by saying things like, well, he was resisting, or if he had just complied, it wouldn't have happened. Many hate crimes are met with these responses, which essentially justify police murders.
Well, what is the relationship between stereotypes and victim blaming?
A stereotype is an overgeneralized belief about a particular category of people. This preconceived idea can manipulate how people see this group. Many stereotypes are the cause of victim blaming, such as fixations on that person's past, physical appearances, making victim deaths seem unimportant due to the area that they were killed in.
Well, why are people that belong to a certain race targeted?
Research has not only repeatedly shown that racial minorities are overrepresented as criminals or perpetrators compared to their white counterparts in the media, but also that this media bias promotes public hostility towards these groups.
Well, what role does the media play in victim blaming?
The media carries false information and reinforces stereotypes. The victim is painted as a criminal while the cop is glorified as a hero. Unarmed Black males like Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice have been subject to victim blaming.
In conclusion, it's important to remember perpetrators of sexual assault are never innocent, no matter what the victim was doing, wearing, or where they were going.
It is also important to remember that cops target racialized communities like Black people and Indigenous peoples.